Hello, world. That's my lead-in for this show. I'm not that creative. I find one thing I like, and then I stick to it forever. I'm Nate Liss. You can find me on Twitter at @AnOutrageJew. With me, as always, Ryan Lopes. You can find him on Twitter at StillRyan5. Listen, I realize we have not delivered content consistently or really enough. We've got so many options. We've got podcast. We've got video cast. We've got tweets. We've got apparently graphics. I don't know what's going on anymore, but we're not delivering. And unfortunately, this episode probably not going to deliver either.
It's not.
Because, Ryan and I talked pre-show. As you can see down below right here, move my hand, breaking down the top 36 rookies. Well, we're going to do this in 3 parts. And unfortunately tonight, we're doing number 25 through 36. We're going off Ryan's list as usual because he's the most prepared man on the internet. Take it away, Ryan. How are you feeling, man?
Bro, I wish I could agree with you, but here we are, the 4th of June, and you and I are just sitting down to talk rookies. Meanwhile, best ball drafts are going on. People are gearing towards redrafts, and you and I are not only talking rookies, but we're talking like the bottom tier of rookies. So I think you and I, it's better late than never. So we're here. We are together. We're talking football, and let's try to have a good time.
That's right, man. And listen, if you don't know by now, look, we don't do IDP. Ryan's into defensive players, but this show, the Breakout Finder as a whole, for now, until Ryan reverse engineers it for defensive players, it is not going to incorporate any IDP. So if you were coming here for anything outside of quarterback, receiver, tight end, or running back, should hit stop right now. We apologize because we are not gonna touch on any of that.
Bro, we are 3 to 4 minutes into the show and we've done nothing but apologize. This is not a good look for us.
This is what you've got to do when the crowd is holding tomatoes and they've got tiki torches and they're mad and they're hungry.
They're hungry.
You diffuse the situation with apologies.
Okay.
Then you do a little smoke show,
right.
Confuse them.
Mix them all up.
And then you give them just average material.
Just bottom shelf.
Stir them up again.
Material. Right.
Get them all fired up. Yeah. Look, it's only up from here.
It can only go up. It can only go up.
Can it? It's not necessarily a lock to go up. And speaking...
Hold on. I see what you did.
There we go, right? So let's talk about your number 36 player. So your number 36 player in this draft was selected in the 2nd round, the 10th pick, quarterback to the Denver Broncos, Drew Locke. So Drew Locke made your top 36, but why is he at number 36?
So I think it goes without saying. There's a couple things. There's quite a few things working against Drew Locke here. Number one, he was a John Elway quarterback selection. John Elway, despite being a fairly prolific quarterback in his own right, hasn't really found his footing as far as selecting the next heir apparent. Obviously, he managed to draw Peyton Manning over to Denver, but outside of Peyton Manning's arrival and that era in Denver, it's not been good. So keep Elway's quarterback evaluations in mind. Largely Drew Locke's sporadic up and down collegiate career. I think he's got the big arm. He's got that going for him. For better or worse, I saw a bunch of Derek Carr type comparisons coming out. As a Raider fan, I'm not gonna elaborate on that too much. But again, I could kind of see the parallels with the big arm and kind of what he does or doesn't do under pressure. He cracked my top 36 just because I despite again the John Elway evaluation maybe working against him. I do like what Denver's building on offense. Obviously, we got Cortland Sutton. Year 2, Drew Locke is playing behind only Joe Flacco, who is not a good quarterback himself. So he might end up getting some legitimate playing time. His rookie season. If not, again, he is tethered to another young receiver in Cortland Sutton, whose arrow is pointing up. Deshaun Hamilton could make a big jump this year himself. They also drafted Noah Fant. They have a nice little combo out of the backfield in Royce Freeman, and obviously we saw what Phil Lindsay did last year. So I think the pieces are all there for Drew Lock, for Drew Lock's arm. Probably isn't going to be asked to do a ton, just again given the kind of limitations coming out of school. But the pieces are in place. The draft capital was there, and I think the opportunity is gonna present itself. So I don't think it's, despite the maybe choppy film evaluations from some folks, the stars are somewhat aligning for Drew Lock, and I think he's a pretty safe bet inside this range.
So, in terms of dynasty, Drew Lock going in the second round, there's no doubt that his opportunity will come. Now, it may not be this year with Joe Flacco, but also with that being said, Joe Flacco has been an underwhelming quarterback pretty much for the last 5 years. I mean, 2014 was the last year that he really did anything of significance. I mean, almost 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns. But since then, we've seen 18 touchdowns and almost an equal amount of interceptions, 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. So he hasn't been anything spectacular. And he's coming from Baltimore, a place where he's kind of had hit and miss wide receivers, to Denver now with a young core of wide receivers, some guys that might need some work. But he's also entering an offense that was number 8 in pass attempts last year. So the opportunity is there. But in terms of Drew Lock, yeah, like you were saying, I mean, I look at like Lance Zierlein has him comped to Matthew Stafford. But they talk about having a big arm, kind of throwing heaters all the time. Maybe not the most accurate dude. So it'll be interesting to see where he kind of filters in. But the fact is, his opportunity will come. And I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Flacco just at some point really isn't getting it done, playing a little too conservative maybe in this offense, especially with the receivers that are on it, and Drew Lock getting his number called. And who knows what happens there, but I'm not reaching for him. So tell me about your player here at number 35, tight end out of Houston.
So we got Kahala, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Kahala Waring. So the blurb that will eventually be up on Breakout Finder, kind of my thoughts on him. It's just in general for me, I really like the landing spot in Houston. Waring should get a chance to start biting some of the volume sooner than later. They don't have very many household names or any kind of names of note. We're talking Jordan Atkins, Jordan Thomas, Darren Fells. None of these guys have a firm foothold on the volume or a majority of the reps, wherever the case may be. Similar to Drew Lock's landing spot. Love the spot in Houston. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins pairing there. That offense is going to continue to run through the air through those guys. Will Fuller, Kiki Kuti. So they have some pass catchers there, and they could run 2 to 3 wideouts confidently. So there's going to be a good chance for some of that, extra volume to kind of funnel over. Again, this is a position that we can see. I know there's going to be a lot of talk as we go through this list, and there's kind of the historic evidence that, tight ends take a little bit longer to develop, to transition from the college game over to Sunday. So we probably will see some of that hangover, so to speak. But again, I really like the landing spot. Waring himself is a above average tester. I believe he's just under the 80th percentile as far as SPARQ score is concerned. And just an overall, above average, athletic profile. So he does check a few boxes. I believe there was a top 100 investment there as well, a third round pick. So again, checking those boxes as far as athletic profile, as far as draft capital, and obviously, landing spot. So.
Yeah, I mean, talk about going to a good spot. The concern going to Houston is you'd like to see Deshaun Watson get an opportunity to let it fly a little more. I mean, last year they ranked number 27 in pass attempts. And Deshaun Watson's an awesome quarterback. I mean, 26 touchdowns despite only 505 attempts. But this is an offense that has a lot of weapons in it. If they get Will Fuller back healthy, DeAndre Hopkins is always going to absorb 160 targets. So the upside's there because I know we talked about it before. This is a guy that's a very good athlete. You already noted it, 77th percentile. Coming out of college, not a ton of collegiate production. You look at his last year, didn't necessarily hit the benchmarks for me of kind of what I look for out of a tight end that I feel like is going to be a hit. But the advantage on his side is went to an accurate quarterback in a good system and has the requisite athleticism. And if he can find his role in this offense, he might do some special things. So, all right, let's roll forward. Let's roll forward here. Number 34, Josh Oliver, another tight end, Jacksonville, taken ahead of Waring, third round, fifth pick. Tell me about him.
Same. I mean, the story's similar for Oliver. I like the landing spot in the sense, I'm not a big Nick Foles guy. Don't have a ton of confidence, don't have as much confidence in that Jacksonville offense, of course, as I do that Houston offense. But similar to Waring's spot in the fact that the tight end depth chart in Jacksonville is, I don't want to say non-existent, but there's not many names that kind of pose a threat to someone like Josh Oliver coming in, another top 100 selection, and having a chance to really take a bite out of that volume and make a quote unquote impact sooner rather than later. What Oliver does also have working for him, something that you kind of alluded to with Waring and a bit of a knock is the collegiate production. Josh Oliver senior season at San Jose State, 57 receptions, over 700 yards, 12 yards of reception, and 4 scores. So as far as tight ends are concerned, he was obviously involved, filled up the box score, and these are things you want to see. He used his senior season. You can consider, is he an ascending prospect? Again, he's going to have an opportunity, one would think, given the names that are kind of surrounding him down in Jacksonville, to show up to camp and kind of make some sort of waves and try to throw his hat in the proverbial ring.
I know you're not a fan, but when we're talking about Big Dick Nick, one of the great quarterbacks of our era, Big Dick Nick, what a significant upgrade over anybody that's been playing quarterback in Jacksonville over the last great period of time. You made a great point. I'm a big fan of Dede Westbrook. I think that we're going to see Dede take a big step forward this year. He had 100 targets last year. That's a surprise, probably to most people, to hear that. 66 receptions, but the quarterback play, for the most part, was pretty poor a lot of the year. I think Dede takes a step forward. Moncrief is gone. This is still a team that I believe wants to commit to the run. I'm curious to see how Leonard Fournette is going to bounce back this year. But yeah, this is another one of those sneaky names. Josh Oliver, pretty good athlete again, 70th percentile SPARQ score. The big thing, and you touched on it again, is the collegiate production. He had the yards, he had the receptions. The yards per reception are a little low on the mark, but at least he had almost 100 catches in college. So that's nice to see for a guy entering the league in this spot. But I think you're right with where you've got him set right now. You've got him at number 34. Looks like he's probably about your tight end 5, which seems about fair in this draft class. So yeah, man, I totally agree with this spot. So let's go on to number 33. A running back that lots of people are fans of. Matt Kelly and I talked about it. There's a lot of analysts out there, big name analysts, that are suddenly rotating on their narratives, and they're moving over to Darwin Thompson, running back at KC, almost taken in the 7th round. Tell me about Darwin Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson again goes to another interesting spot. You like running backs in that Andy Reid offense. The problem for Thompson is he's a bit buried. I think the Chiefs have obviously been vocal about Damian Williams getting kind of the lion's share of work there, as he should. I say that as a Damian Williams dynasty owner, of course, but Darwin Thompson might prove to be, the lightning to Williams' thunder, so to speak, and could find himself, carving out a nice little role. I know, the whole pre-draft process for Darwin Thompson was pretty strong. Utah State kid, so probably didn't get a ton of looks until kind of later on in the process, but a legit gym rat, plus athlete. I think Player Profile has him as a 74th percentile SPARQ X score, which is more than more than good enough. And I think you watched him on film, kind of leading up to the draft, and it was easy to kind of draw those Tariq Cohen type parallels. And I think, especially Matt Nagy coming from that Andy Reid tree over in Chicago might give you kind of a glimpse of what Andy Reid might be able to kind of cook up for him. Again, I think they really give Damian Williams all he can handle early and often. So it might be hard for Thompson to kind of carve out, a role where he's making a significant impact. But definitely a nice little third round kind of dynasty stash for you.
Yeah, this is a guy that people have certainly turned the corner on, and his name has come up a lot more recently than in the past. And another name that's kind of been put in parallel with him is James Williams out of Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
A guy with some serious receiving chops, but not the level of athleticism of Darwin Thompson. I mean, Darwin Thompson's got the burst. His 40-yard dash, not phenomenal, 4.6 at 200 pounds. But he's got the agility, 70th percentile or more or less. And you want to have the agility score. If he's not going to have the overall speed scores, you want him to have the agility. That's a good indicator of a player that can be a hit at the next level. And you touched on this too, man, that college production. We've got 1 year of the D1 production at Utah State. Limited work, but incredible in limited opportunity. 153 carries this year as a junior, almost 7 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns. But the receptions, man, we're seeing it 15.3 yards per reception. So explosive. It really correlates with that athleticism. And just like you said, man, it's a great offense to go to. This is a guy that could potentially be one injury away from serious value. So it's somebody you want to stash. And I do like James Williams. I love his profile. I mean, it's a guy with 200 plus receptions throughout college. Washington State does this with their running backs. He's not the only guy to come out with prolific receiving production. But it's a name to watch in camp. But yeah, Darwin Thompson's a guy that you should be rostering if you can get your hands on him. I love it, man. So, okay, here's another one. This is a good one. This is a guy that arguably can move into that number 2 spot sooner than later in his offense. Number 32, Dexter Williams, running back, Green Bay.
Yeah, Williams was a player that our good friend Justin Higdon over there, AFC to NFC, kind of shined a light on when everyone was talking up guys like Josh Jacobs. Justin was focusing on Dexter Williams' kind of home run explosiveness. This dude was breaking off 20 plus yard runs at a clip that was on par with with some of his class's most explosive runners. The problem with Dexter Williams was that he doesn't have a stellar athletic profile per se, and there were some kind of off the field issues. I believe he was fighting through a ankle injury as well, which again cost him a little bit of time. So I wouldn't say an injury history, but does have an injury to his name, which is again to go with that kind of off-field stuff. It's just flags that are adding up that we don't necessarily like to see. As far as landing spot, as you kind of allude to, anyone that has a set of eyes that has watched the Green Bay offense knows that the ground game should be run through Aaron Jones. Yes. We'll see kind of what the new staff has in mind. Obviously, the previous regime kind of fumbled that up a little bit. Jamal Williams looked surprisingly good. I was somewhat high on him, but then he kind of got some reps initially. You kind of saw some of that stiffness, some of those concerns that some folks had, but Green Bay kept riding him a little bit here and there. So I expect him to kind of hold on, or at least give Dexter Williams some kind of fits initially. But to your point, Williams' profile, overall profile, is someone that I think he offers what Jamal Williams does, but just brings that next level explosiveness, something that Jamal Williams wasn't necessarily known for, at least on Sunday. So again, a player that I think Matt Kelly was kind of touting, shortly after the draft, as far as dynasty was concerned. So a player that I have again in this bottom tier, but to your point, in a plus offense, and could find himself with a little more work than we had initially projected.
Look, man, I mean, he's not a bad athlete, 60th percentile. He's got the agility. You want to talk about a bad athlete? Let's talk about Jamal Williams for a minute. 11th percentile. That's almost single digits. I'm a single digit percentile spark score.
No bueno.
I'll go do it right now. I couldn't do better than him, though. The thing is, he did have the receiving chops. That's where Jamal Williams did prove to have a value to Green Bay. But I think that with Aaron Jones being the clear-cut number one in this offense,
has to be the one. Has to be the one.
There's just no doubt. The advanced metrics say so. The raw statistics say so. The ball needs to go through Aaron Jones a lot more. When you've got a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers that can dissect the defense, you've got receivers like Devontae Adams on the outside that are locks to get open. This offense should look a lot better next year. But despite the fact that Jamal Williams is the incumbent that's running in the number 2 spot, I didn't see anything from him that makes me believe that Dexter Williams can't come in here and outplay him and outright get this job. Now, I don't necessarily predict it to be early, but I think we could be looking at halfway, 3/4 of the way through the season when we start to have a transition at that second running back spot, especially if Aaron Jones was to miss time. Aaron Jones is the lead back, likely is going to get a lot more work this year. I think that's the belief, or at least the hope. If Aaron Jones went down, I feel like it's a full-blown running back by committee. But we don't say that if Aaron Jones is the starting back. So Dexter Williams' opportunities will come. You love to see the agility that's playing in his favor. It's a guy that I would love to roster. You want to own Dexter Williams in this offense going forward. Another player that I would love to own, I cannot get my hands on, big fan, came on the Sonic Truth podcast, did a terrible interview, one of the worst interviews in the history of the world. It was bad, man. I didn't know. It was nothing.
The whole world.
Matt and I couldn't even save it. I've heard some bad interviews, but boy, that was just... He sounded like he was just running through the airport. He had a shirt sleeve hanging out of his suitcase. Like, this was bad news.
You guys caught him at a bad time.
Apparently, but why did you pick up the phone? Come on, bro. Let's do this sitting down. I love you, Kelvin. Number 31, Kelvin Harmon, wide receiver. Washington Redskins almost fell out of the draft.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say a couple things about him, but I would love to get kind of your post-draft take on it because, again, as you just kind of pulled the curtain back once more, reminded the people this was your guy throughout the process. Obviously, showed up at the combine. He probably shouldn't have shown up at the combine, but he did, and obviously we kind of saw the ramifications of that. Nearly went undrafted, 6th round pick. I think, again, for the hashtag tape watchers, he's shown enough. I mean, I've seen some pretty respected, quote unquote draft analysts, kind of still, despite the combine, he was still in that top 10. Maybe some people even had him in the top 5 mix, despite all that. That's how strong his tape was. Now, given the draft capital and kind of that hill he has to climb, in a Washington offense that's kind of in the process of reinventing himself. Obviously, a brand new signal caller there, rookie quarterback. So, Harmon's ceiling might be more wide receiver 2-ish versus a true wide receiver 1. But again, he definitely has that hill to climb, which is why I kind of kept him in the mix in this 3rd tier versus, the 2nd tier or something like that. But again, I would love to kind of get your post-draft thoughts and is Kelvin Harmon going to do something? Can he do anything to kind of save his dynasty stock, my friend Nate?
Yeah, first off, don't do any more interviews. My goodness, what in the world?
Step one.
I'm actually concerned that it wasn't the combine that hurt his draft stock. It was the interview. I had a ton of people tweet at me and say that we killed his draft stock. But let's go over a couple
Sonic
things.
Truth Dynasty podcast killed Kelvin Harmon's draft stock.
They don't even know who we are, and we killed his draft stock.
You guys buried him.
So let's talk about this for a second. We've seen some receivers disappear from this Washington Redskins offense. And before we get into Kelvin Harmon, let's also note the fact that Terry McLaurin goes in the 3rd round to the same roster. Terry McLaurin gets literally no conversation at all, despite the fact that he's a 3rd round pick. Josh Doxson, as far as I'm concerned, is I don't want to say bust. He's toast, though. I mean, how much more can you put into Doxson? I feel like he hasn't earned his spot. He's a candidate to get totally supplanted on this roster. We've got Trey Quinn. We've got Paul Richardson, who's been injured throughout his career. We've seen flashes of brilliance, if you want to call it that. He's looked good in some spots, but his history has been riddled with injury, so there's inconsistencies there. Even Brian Quick, like who are we concerned about? I feel like you see the rapport between Dwayne Haskins and Kelvin Harmon, you see it back and forth on Twitter. You see the videos. You see him working after practice. This is where it starts. You got two rookies coming in the same class. Right. When that cohesion works between these two players, we start to see a little bit of that growth. And I think with two young guys, there's a chance. And we knew that Kelvin Harmon was a worker. I think that Kelvin Harmon has a chance to be one of the more successful 6th-round picks that we've seen in the NFL. He fell because, obviously, I think the athleticism just wasn't up to snuff in a class where the athleticism was so wildly good. I mean, we saw so many receivers test so well. And I've used this phrasing before. Kelvin Harmon didn't so much fall as he was just passed up by other guys that were better athletes. And I think more and more we're seeing the league sort of rotate to take the guy that's a good athlete. If they've got enough on tape that we feel like we can mold them into an even better player, let's go for it. Versus a guy like Kelvin Harmon, who I thought was the most sure-handed receiver in the class. Well, he went to a team that's going to use him. I think he's going to get his opportunity, and he could be the number 2 receiver in this offense sooner than later. The draft process was an unfortunate thing. I mean, at one point I was wondering if he was even going to get drafted, and I'm glad that the Washington Redskins took him, and they got such a steal at quarterback too, getting Dwayne Haskins at 15, I think. So this might be a perfect pairing. You've got McLaurin, who's got the speed, can run those deeper routes, and I'm expecting Kelvin Harmon to sort of be that safety blanket for Dwayne Haskins, a guy that can run some clean routes, knows how to use his body, has that sure-handedness, isn't afraid to go across the middle of the field, and is going to work hard. So in dynasty terms, it's pretty fortunate that you can get a guy with this guy's talent because of the unfortunate situation where he fell. I mean, it's just a surprise to me. So here's a guy who literally, if nobody's talking about Terry McLaurin, then nobody is talking about this guy. You should know him. You're an Oakland fan. 30th on your list here, Hunter Renfro, wide receiver to Oakland, 5th round, 11th pick. What's going on here? What is this?
Dude, I feel a little bit hypocritical, even number 1 including him here, but number 2 kind of writing even the blurb that I ended up writing for him. I was again talking with my very good friend Justin, AFC to NFC, and dude, admittedly, like, to full transparency, Renfro wasn't even a guy that I had like as being draftable. Not a player that I spent a ton of time on. More or less kind of brushed him aside. I posted a screenshot of a DM that Justin and I had going back and forth after Renfro was drafted in the 5th round, and I said I didn't watch him because he looked like my accountant. I had nothing. I wanted nothing to do with him, again. But the reality was that was obviously very, very ignorant, which is why I don't get paid to do this professionally, anything like that. But Renfro, all he did was play for a dominant Clemson teams and just come up in big situations. Yes. He is, I was a big Ryan Switzer fan coming out. Ryan Switzer's tape was, to me, I had some of the most fun watching Ryan Switzer play college football at the University of North Carolina. Now, Hunter Renfro wasn't as exciting on tape, but one of the similarities that I kind of came back to is much like I felt like Ryan Switzer never really ever dropped a football, just that consistency. That was the same with Hunter Renfro. Again, he didn't do it with as much flash, or there weren't as many quote unquote fun plays, but the fact is, if nothing else, Hunter Renfro was very consistent. Now, as far as dynasty is concerned, again, in this Raider offense, they have Tyrell Williams on the outside, they have some guy named Antonio Brown on the outside, they cut Seth Roberts, so feasibly all these slot reps are up for grabs. John Gruden spent all off season talking up guys like Andy Isabella, talking up guys like Penny Hart. Obviously didn't draft either of them, but he may have found his slot option going forward. My thought process is, despite who they have under center, obviously it's a very big year for Derek Carr, and going forward, there's question marks about what Derek Carr brings to the table, what, the Derek Carr, John Gruden relationship and all that stuff going forward. But in this offense, obviously a new investment at running back, some question marks at tight end, but I think that volume at tight end that's going to be missed from Jared Cook is going to get more than made up with the outside receivers, which is nothing but a benefit to Hunter Renfro, who again might just end up getting getting this volume just funneled to him, given the outside presences. So again, not a fancy player by any means, which is why he finds himself kind of fumbling around in this third tier for me. But a player that I can kind of see a path to success in the very, very immediate future, if things kind of shake out for him, and it's going to be in large part due to that consistency.
Man, you touched on it, but let's trickle over to the breakout finder for a second and talk about Hunter Renfro. This is one of those
does Matt
names.
Kelly have a funny picture up there for him, like some funny looking office guy or something like that?
No, it looks just like him wearing a tie, which yes does look like a funny office guy.
Love that.
So Hunter Renfro, man, in the breakout finder ranks really highly, and part of the reason is exactly what you touched on, man. His teammate score. He has played with studs at Clemson, man. All they do is produce absolute monsters, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. I mean, there's likely at least one more first-round guy and probably a very early day 2 guy coming out that play with Hunter Renfro as well. His production in college, though, if we go back and look, I mean, he was a slot guy, but just like you said, he was a go-to guy. And this is someone that I think is truly slept on, and he's not a sexy pick, and he's not a sexy player, and he's not an elite athlete, but he's got sneaky good agility, 76th percentile, and that's something that you want out of your slot receiver, and you want that sure-handedness, right? That's what we need out of these guys. So he goes to Oakland, a spot where you said all those slot targets could go to him potentially. He could be a quick option for Derek Carr in the future. Again, not fun to roster him, even less fun to start him.
The opposite of fun, even.
Yeah, what is the opposite of fun? Not fun. I'm sure there's another word, not
there's
fun.
There's got to be another word for that, but let's go with not fun.
So not fun to start him. Nobody wants to start him. I totally understand it. But this is a guy that played for the Clemson Tigers that could have literally put anybody else on that field in those critical games over the duration of his career, but it was him. He was very good the whole time. I mean, he had 44 catches as a sophomore, 60 as a junior, 49 in just a stacked wide receiver group as a senior. So this is a good team. His teammate score is super high. This is a guy just to keep tabs on. I mean, Oakland might not be the ideal landing spot for a player like this, considering sort of their philosophy and some of the other players in this offense, especially taking Josh Jacobs. There's probably going to be a lot of work for him. But he's not the worst player in this class, and so understandably you have him ranked where you have him. But when we talk about worst players in the class, when we talk about guys that should not have been drafted and probably got selected in the wrong spot altogether, number 29, I can't even, makes me almost feel like I throw up my mouth. Alexander Mattison, running back, Minnesota, third round pick, 4 rounds too early, maybe 5 rounds too early. Didn't go to the ideal spot necessarily, or did he?
Well, I want to preface this by saying I don't want to spend a ton of time here because I can hear Matt Kelly right behind me with his sunglasses on, just cackling. And to me that makes me uncomfortable. So I want to make this as quick and painless as possible. Alexander Mattison was a running back who I months ago suggested was underrated to the open laughter of you and our friend Mr. Kelly. So I was a fan, still am a fan, and the thing with Alexander Mattison and me and what I have him ranked is the landing spot. Again, you kind of suggested he didn't do a ton to really wow as far as box score and production, didn't do a ton to really wow as far as athletic testing and his athletic profile, but the draft capital was there, which as you suggested was maybe a bit surprising to someone like you. And he goes to a team, he goes to an offense that saw their backup running back depart this offseason. So I am a Mike Boone fan myself, and I would give the second string reps to Mike Boone, but the fact that they invested in Alexander Mattison suggests that RB2 spot is is open, and he's backing up a workhorse running back in Dalvin Cook, who missed some time with injuries. So you mentioned it before with someone like Darwin Thompson, who could feasibly be a play away from legitimate volume. And I see if that path opens, if for nothing else, he is a plus handcuff in a team that is going to run the ball. And Madison, again, despite the the underwhelming production, all that stuff, he profiles as kind of a pseudo third down, three down type runner, someone that could bang and kind of churn out yards, albeit again not in a flashy fashion. But again, I really like the landing spot here. I know I'm going to get some boos and some hisses, but again, I think that the path to volume could be there. You can definitely kind of craft up some sort of scenario here, especially with Dalvin Cook's history.
What are we even doing here?
I don't know, man. Next player.
What are we doing? Pull the plug, turn the lights off, shut the stadium down. Look, he's playing behind Dalvin Cook. Now, if Dalvin Cook is healthy, there is absolutely no logical reason for the Minnesota Vikings to pull him off of the field.
Totally.
B, he went to an offense that has arguably the best 1-2 wide receiver combination in the league in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, in an offense that finished number 6 in pass attempts last year. Now they got Kirk Cousins, not Big Dick Nick. A little sad. Just want to say Big Dick Nick again. But Kirk Cousins finished with a 70% completion percentage. So pretty accurate last year. Hard not to be when you've got those two receivers on the outside. But you're right. Latavius Murray, a capable backup running back, went to a very good situation in New Orleans and opened up a real opportunity in a Minnesota Vikings backfield that, as much as I like the athleticism of Mike Boone and agree he should probably be the backup running back, there's a very real chance that can't even bring myself to say it, that Alexander Mattison
you get choked up, right?
Could be the number 2 back behind world beater Dalvin Cook.
Confetti
Stop
everywhere.
clapping.
It's raining over my body.
Don't waste the confetti.
Raining over my body.
Don't waste the confetti. Use it for something else. I don't know. Let's pull it on somebody else. So I don't love the athleticism, obviously. 61st percentile. The agility score wasn't totally in the crapper, which is nice to see. Has a little bit of burst. From a collegiate production standpoint, I always beat the crap out of Boise State backs, Mountain West Conference backs. I'm never surprised when these guys come out and do well in this conference. I'm sure Madison was better than the sum of the players that he was playing against. But even me, a total hater of Madison, cannot ignore the fact that he had a good amount of receptions his sophomore and junior year, and those are exciting benchmarks on this profile, because the thing is, if you're going to be a bigger back and you're not going to be a necessarily fast back, if you can be a solid football player and you're not a liability in the pass game, in pass pro and as a receiver, it's a big advantage. And this is a guy that carried the ball 302 times last year, stayed pretty healthy. That's something that Minnesota is going to certainly need behind Dalvin Cook, who has been brittle throughout his career thus far, and I'm hoping that we get a different version of him. Mm-hmm. So, number 28, things are starting to look up a little bit. I'm actually just putting a semi-smile on my face.
Okay.
Semi. Was sad after Alexander Mattison. I'm actually mad. I'm mad after Madison. Tell me about your number 28 player on this list.
Deante Johnson, much like Hunter Renfro, wasn't a player that I was really in tune with. wasn't one that I spent a ton of time on. But unlike Hunter Renfro, was a player that I made time for after some of the other kind of big media and other notable draft analysis kind of started digging around his Toledo tape. Not a standout athlete, but his tape, again, going back to the tape and all the tape watchers, really smooth off the line footwork, ability to separate, things like that matter, and things like that matter to the Steelers front office, same Steelers front office that has sort of a penchant for drafting and developing these kind of mid-round wide outs. So I think with Johnson, you have an early third third-round investment, which is notable. His sophomore season at Toledo, he saw over 1,200 yards, 17 yards a catch, 13 scores. Kind of took a few steps back during his junior campaign. But I believe you might have shared a stat about his red zone, efficiency. I think you and I brought up Johnson's game an episode or two ago. But as far as he does appear a bit buried, at least initially. We're expecting, obviously, the passing game to run through Juju Smith-Schuster. Vance McDonald at tight end is kind of ready for maybe his next step and could see kind of an increase in volume himself. James Washington, it could be a big sophomore season for him. They have the aforementioned Ryan Switzer as well. Dante Moncrief was another signing. So again, Johnson's path to at least immediate kind of relevancy is a bit more cloudy, coupled with the fact that Big Ben I believe he just got paid or extended or whatever the case may be, but we know his time is kind of slowly coming to a close as well. So maybe the long-term view might be a little bit more murky, but again, I think between the combination of the front office and the coaching staff's ability to kind of develop, given just mixed with, of course, just the raw talent and kind of ability, leaves me enough to be intrigued. Again, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be an offense that remains at least somewhat exciting, given the backfield, James Conner, Jalen Samuel, and again those pass catchers that we just talked about. So not enough for me to kind of vault him into that second tier or higher, whatever the case may be, but does enough to kind of keep me intrigued as far as like an early to mid round flyer.
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I was absolutely shocked when he got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
My head spun and shot off my body. Here's the other thing. Went to Pittsburgh. Believe it or not, Pittsburgh finished number 1 in pass attempts last year. Big Ben slinging it 675 times. He threw for over 5,000 yards. Antonio Brown is gone. It is time for Dante Moncrief's breakout. Okay, hold on. Let's pull the brakes on that. So, there's a lot of open opportunity in this offense, but the belief is that James Washington should get his opportunity. Higher draft capital, drafted a year before. The Steelers watched Antonio Brown go out the door for what seemed like nothing, and they got stuck with the bill. This is a team that's got Juju Smith, clearly a top, at this point, we call him a top 6 wide receiver in the league. He's right up there with the best of the best. And this is an offense that's going to continue to throw the ball. I like what he could be in this offense. I'm not really sure what his role is going to be initially. If he could play some slot here or what the expectation is. James Washington's profile says he's going to be an outside big play threat. We know what Juju Smith does. I know Smith plays the slot too. So it'll be interesting. I'm a fan. It's a great depth chart to go to. I don't think that his price tag in Dynasty is very high because of all the weapons in front of him and because the fact that there's already an elite wide receiver 1, more or less, if Juju maintains the volume. No team's producing 2 wide receiver 1s. It's just not happening. So that's out. And we know that he's likely not going to return wide receiver 2 with Vance McDonald, James Conner, all these weapons. So he's a stronghold for the future. Who's to say when things are going to work out? He's a good player to own because it's a great roster, but there's a lot of guys in front of him. Oh God! I just looked at number 27. I'm
getting warm.
Lord, was Matt Kelly right? Hakeem Butler at number 27 goes to Arizona, not even the first receiver that Arizona took in this draft. Goes all the way to the 4th round when many analysts were saying he was a first-round pick. I think you said that. What do you have to say for yourself? Are you ashamed? Are you ashamed of yourself?
I am a little embarrassed. I'll be honest. I will not. I'm gonna go ahead and give Matt Kelly his props. He called the shot. And I think no, we're not gonna clap for Matt.
No,
Kelly.
we're pulling that confetti. You pulled it too soon.
I think you kind of alluded to, but there was a very interesting split on on Twitter as far as, kind of the big name media that are probably a little more dialed into NFL front offices. Dane Brugler, notably, he was not high on Hakeem Butler, and he stated, many of the same concerns that Matt Kelly did as far as, his hands and whatever the case may be. And obviously offices shared those same concerns, whereas you had a strong contingent on Twitter. I won't put myself in that group, but legends like Matt Waldman, Evan Silva, these guys, turned on the Hakeem Butler film and were wowed, by his build, his ability to run at that size, his overall athletic profile, his big play, Randy Moss above the rim type ceiling. Obviously that resulted in a 4th round selection, as you suggested. Wasn't even the first wide receiver taken on this new look Arizona offense. So I don't have much to say about Butler, except that my heart slowly breaks, but I think there's a chance that we're gonna get mended all back up. Kyler Murray had a tweet. I'm gonna try to find it and maybe tweet it back out on the Breakout Finder account, man. But Kyler Murray sat down for an interview, man, and he said he's never had the chance to throw to a receiver that was built that can play like Hakeem Butler. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna buy into all that early kind of camp narrative, but as you kind of suggested, between the Christian Kirks, Larry Fitzgerald's still there, Andy Isabella, who was drafted before him, who that front office is also very high on. That path that we talked about isn't as clear, but again, it's so hard to ignore, in my opinion, so hard to ignore that profile that Hakeem Butler brings to the table. And once Larry Fitzgerald exits stage right, they don't have that bigger body in that offense. I guess if you want to consider their tight end Ricky Seals-Jones, he is that kind of bigger element, but again, a player that's kind of been up and down in his own right. So Hakeem Butler could be that that red zone terror of the future.
I mean, are we sure that Hakeem Butler is going to beat out Chad Williams and Kevin White for a roster spot?
I'm pretty positive.
I'm not even sure he could beat out Trent Sherfield, who I didn't even know was on this roster.
Who the hell is Trent Sherfield?
Oh, watch out, because Pharaoh Cooper is also on this roster. Who the hell is Trent Sherfield? I don't even know. Listen, here's the deal. We all love Kyler Murray. We don't know what Cliff Kingsbury is going to do with this offense, with this team. We just don't know. It's a wild card. But let's make an assumption for a second. Let's just say hypothetically that Kyler Murray finishes somewhere in the middle of the league in passing attempts. So somewhere between 475 and 500 attempts as a rookie. 500 attempts as a rookie. We've got David Johnson, who we believe is going to see 100 targets in this offense potentially. So we're down to 400. Christian Kirk last year saw 68. He should take a step forward as one of the premier receivers on this team to 100. We're down to 300. Chad Williams will suck up the other 300 targets. No, stop. But at this point, you've got Larry Fitzgerald, who's going to do something in this offense. I don't know if he's going to play a little bit lesser role. I assume not. They're going to put him out there for the full deal. He's a good blocker. He's probably in there for 70, 75, 80 targets, a little less than we've seen. I get what the allure is about Hakeem Butler, and in straight football terms and philosophy, he's probably great for this offense. Big, long, athletic, fast, vertical wide receiver, an excellent weapon. Kyler Murray was right, never had a guy like this. But in terms of dynasty, what is the realistic return you believe that you're going to get for Hakeem Butler? I mean, realistically, I would be shocked to see Hakeem Butler get to 100 targets in the next 2 years. I mean, just based on how much competition there is on this depth chart. Now, they're talking about running a ton of plays a game, and I think that that's more of an advantage for a guy like Chase Edmonds. I think you're going to see more of him than we expected to see in the past because he was good in opportunities. But this is a pretty loaded depth chart. I mean, there's few teams in the league. We could look forward 2 years from now and talk about how this is the most stacked receiving core in the league. I mean, potentially with Isabella, with Kirk, Fitzgerald will be gone at this point, with Hakeem Butler, with David Johnson, and Kyler Murray, who's probably going to use his legs a little bit in this offense, a little more than we've seen from any of these other quarterbacks in the past. So it'll be curious kind of to see how much opportunity there truly is. I really like these players, but I'm fearful of their opportunity. So when you select a guy like Hakeem Butler, you got to know that there's a chance that he never gets the volume of some of these other receivers. Like, in all seriousness, I could see Kelvin Harmon having more targets over the next 2 years or 3 years than Hakeem Butler. And I know you think that's crazy. I know you think it's crazy. No, I'm being serious. If he ascends to the number 2 in his offense, it is totally feasible that Kelvin Harmon sees more targets than Hakeem Butler does. Now, I know you think that's crazy, and that's fine. That's fine. That's I'm
gonna withhold commentary only because, you know, again, Matt Kelly definitely took the W here. I took some sort of L. So it's that same mountain that Kelvin Harmon has to climb. You know, you get that draft capital working against you in an offense that is literally being rebuilt, which could be advantageous, or given the other players around him, it could take a while for him to kind of really grab a secure foothold. So.
I mean, and they're both middle to late round draft capital. They're 2 rounds apart, so that's significant. But neither guy was a high pick. I mean, neither guy went first round. Neither guy went second round. Oh, Andy Isabella went second round, though. Okay, so let's go to number 26. Another tight end, last tight end of this group, went to a stacked offense that we've already been talking about. Has, if he's healthy, a top 10 running back, 2 potentially top 10 receivers. Unfortunately, I don't know if the volume's going to be there, but it's possible. Right. They're right there. Let's talk about Irv Smith, Minnesota, second round pick.
Yeah, I think with Smith, again, I like the landing spot. To your point, we've kind of highlighted the fact that they are carrying Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen. That offense is gonna try to get things going on the ground as well. So the volume's gonna be somewhat of concern. However, working in Irv Smith's advantage, the fact that Kyle Rudolph does turn 30 in September, there was kind of a little bit of buzz about him being on the trade block or some sort of cut candidate earlier on this offseason. Obviously, that none of that ever kind of materialized, but I know Rudolph is looking for that new deal. From what we've seen, the Minnesota has been hesitant to kind of provide him that, so it's safe to say that Rudolph almost already kind of has that 1 foot out the door, and Irv Smith is probably that heir apparent to that tight end spot. Now I think also working in his advantage is Kirk Cousins. He's someone who, much like Joe Flacco over in Denver, he's someone that does target and rely on the tight end position. So, even with their, the presence of a Diggs and an Adam Thielen and that backfield, assuming that Dalvin Cook is healthy, Kirk Cousins does have a tendency to rely on the tight end position. So we could see, a bit of a, consistent stream of targets to Irv Smith. He hasn't even turned 21 yet, or just turned 21, so he's got age on his side. Isn't necessarily the athlete, isn't close to the athlete that former Alabama tight end OJ Howard was coming out of school, but his film was somewhat reminiscent, especially after the catch. A tight end who was did enough in the red area after the catch, and did enough in line as a blocker as well. So a player that has a well-rounded game, comes from NFL bloodlines, has that second round draft capital, so has a lot working for him. The biggest red flag, so to speak, is again him kind of fitting into that offense, especially as Kyle Rudolph initially transitions out. So it could be more of a long-term play as opposed to like some sort of short-term kind of initial gain.
2 things here. First off, you touched on it. Minnesota targeted the tight end position over 100 times last year. So that's big volume. Number 2, when Kyle Rudolph inevitably gets traded to the New England Patriots, hello, Irv Smith. That's when everything is going down for him. But he has the draft capital. He has the athleticism. This is just a tough roster to go to. I mean, if Kyle Rudolph sticks around, we may see more 2 tight end sets. But it's going to be tough for him to see any real volume unless we do see a departure of Kyle Rudolph. And at this point, there's still an opportunity that happens. But I don't know how it plays out. But In terms of benchmarks, Irv Smith certainly hit him in college. Over 16 yards per reception as a junior, 44 catches, 710 yards. This is a good Alabama team last year, so he comes from a good offense as well. And this is the right depth chart to land on. We just don't know what the deal is with Kyle Rudolph going forward. So, the last one, number 25 on the list.
We've done it.
We're almost there. And we've touched on this player too in the past. Tell me about your running back at number 25.
Ryquell Armstead, Jacksonville, 5th round pick. So draft capital isn't necessarily something that's gonna jump out at you. But what he does have working for him is Leonard Fournette isn't very good. I'm not gonna say that he stinks, but I am not a Leonard Fournette fan. I think the yards per carry kind of speaks to that. However, he does have a true workhorse, 3 down rolls. So that's nothing to kind of overlook. But between the kind of the up and down play on the field, coupled with the injury history, we've seen him kind of speak out and kind of have some off-field question marks, whether it was commentary about the coaching staff or whatever the case may be. So I don't know if I should go as far to say that he is on thin ice, but it's kind of looking like that is we'll call it a rocky situation. So behind Leonard Fournette, to Armstead's advantage, they aren't rostering Yeldon anymore. They do have a couple other guys that are names that many are probably familiar with: Alfie Blue, Tom Rawls, Ben Cunningham. These guys, for the most part, whether they're journeymen or just they are just a pack of just guys. None of them are really going to be chomping at the bit to kind of either get a chance to or hold on to any kind of substantial volume. So Armstead might have a chance to kind of bully one of these guys out of those backup running back duties. I think we saw Armstead do enough production wise at school, and finds himself in a spot where Leonard Fournette could have one more injury or one more kind of off the field type blip on the radar, and next thing you know, as you mentioned before, much like Alexander Mattison, much like Darwin Thompson, these guys could all feasibly be kind of one play away. So these handcuffs or plus handcuffs or whatever we want to call them, these guys are important to consider kind of in this third tier in these early 2 middle rounds.
And Fournette's missed time over the past 2 years. A lot more in 2018. But the advantage here, and I can't stress this enough for Armstead, is he's playing with Big Dick Nick, and that's very important. It's a very important distinction.
Stock up.
Yeah, definitely. When you can get your hands on Big Dick Nick, you go with both of them. You go in tough and firm. But this is this guy. So I'm with you on the Leonard Fournette thing, man. I think that we've seen a player that was likely overdrafted, and he went to a team that had a poor offense. The coaching staff never quite got it together for him. We've seen injuries. We've seen missed time. This depth chart, despite the fact it's got a cavalcade of names that they're not really household names, but like you said, Alfred Blue, Benny Cunningham, Thomas Rawls. There's some names of guys that have played enough in this league that they're not going to necessarily be easy players to just hurdle and get around. Alfred Blue has managed to stick around for an ungodly amount of time.
How does he do it? He gets starts every year somehow. Nobody can explain it.
But I think Armstead is sort of that new juice that's been, kind of injected into this offense. And surprisingly, Leonard Fournette's only played 2 seasons in the NFL. I feel like he's been in the NFL for 6 years. It's just crazy what's taken place. So as far as the stash, I'm with you on this. I think he's one of the best names that you can get a hold of, because different from, say, Dexter Williams in Green Bay, or Darwin Thompson and KC. And Darwin Thompson and KC, again, playing behind a guy that doesn't have a lot of draft capital. But Leonard Fournette, he has an injury history. It almost feels like a certainty that he is going to get hurt or he's going to underwhelm. And there's an actual tracked opportunity here But the reality is, with any of these types of players that have late round draft capital, if they hit at any point, if their opportunity arises, you have to sell them. There are so few Isaiah Crowells or, Arian Fosters, and again, these guys are undrafted or different versions, but there's so few guys with late round draft capital that end up making a career out of it, Jordan Howard's, that you have to take advantage of it and sell while you can, unless you're in dire need of starting running backs. I'm holding Armstead till he gets his chance, and then I'm selling. And there's a very good chance that Leonard Fournette goes down, and Armstead might get his opportunity this year. So I'm looking forward to that. So that was Ryan's bottom 12. Just so happy that I could drop Nick Foles' name as many times as
three times, bro. I had a whiteboard going. I got tally marks. Three big dick Nick references tonight.
There are no Jacksonville players in Ryan's 13 through 24, but I will certainly do my absolute best to shoehorn one more big dick Nick reference into the episode. I'm going to get my hands on it, and I'm going to say it.
Both of them, you said.
Both of them. Yeah, exactly. Tip drill. We're gonna really make this thing work. So, man, we said this was going to be like a short episode. It was way longer.
I don't know how we do it. I don't know why we do it to ourselves.
No, I didn't want to do the Madison thing, but you wanted to. You pushed me.
We did it together. We did it together.
We did it. We drove off a cliff together. Look, so just remember, everybody, this is a video cast. This is a podcast. Breakout Finder is coming. We're working on the rankings. I know we've been telling you the Breakout Finder is coming forever. Feel like Paul Revere if he was telling a lie. It's coming. I swear to God, it's
bro. This
close.
is like the Jay Electronica album that he's been promising for like a decade, and it's just never. It's just like Dr. Dre and Detox or whatever. It's just like we're just gonna keep stringing this thing along, and then maybe in like 5 years we'll just randomly, hey, here it is, and we'll see you still around.
When traffic is at an absolute minimum.
Right. That's the perfect time for us. That's the perfect time for us.
That's when we show up.
That's what we want.
So, hey, if you don't follow Ryan on Twitter, go check him out at StillRyan5. Go to the Breakout Finder account at Breakout_Finder. We're dropping graphics to help sort of accentuate the metrics that we've built into the system. It's coming. If you like the podcast, go rate it, review it. We're trying to move up the charts here so that we can spread the wealth to a lot of other people. Go tell Ryan if you hate his list, if you love his list. Let him know, man.
Please
let him
know
that
me
he's
know.
Too low on Kelvin
really mean
Harmon.
tweets. Really mean tweets.
Ryan hates it when you're mean to him.
Fragile.
So right on, man. Hey, it was another good one, and we'll hopefully be back next week with a big name, semi-fantasy football celebrity. I don't know. Maybe it's not next week.
Big Dick Nick himself.
Yeah, we're going to bring Big Dick Nick on here. Probably not. I'm sure the guy that's going to come on here is going to be half that size, but that's fine. We're ready for it. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week on the Breakout Finder videocast.